Right now, somewhere in America, a 45-year-old man is sitting in a drive-through line ordering the same greasy combo meal he's been eating 3 times a week since college. He's got high blood pressure, prediabetes, and a gut that enters the room a full second before he does. His doctor just told him he's on the express lane to a heart attack, and his solution was to switch from regular Coke to Diet Coke. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, there's a 95-year-old farmer in Sardinia who just walked 2 miles uphill to tend his goat herd. He's had the same wife for 70 years, drinks a glass of red wine every night, and his idea of a pharmacy is his garden. He's not on any medication. He's never seen the inside of a hospital, and statistically, he's going to outlive that 45-year-old American by decades. The difference between these two men isn't genetics. It's not luck. It's not some expensive longevity supplement sold by a tech bro in a black turtleneck. It's food. Plain, boring, unsexy food. Scientists have spent billions trying to crack the code on aging, and the punchline is almost insulting. The biggest cheat code for a longer life has been sitting in the produce aisle this whole time. There are 5 places on Earth where people consistently live past 100, at rates 10 times higher than the United States. They're called the Blue Zones: Okinawa, Japan; Sardinia, Italy; Icaria, Greece; Nicoya, Costa Rica; and Loma Linda, California. Researchers from Harvard, the National Institute on Aging, and National Geographic spent years studying what these people eat, how they move, and how they live. And the data doesn't lie. What you shove down your throat 3 times a day is the single most controllable variable between dying at 65 with a medicine cabinet full of pills and blowing out 100 candles while still being sharp enough to roast your grandkids at the dinner table. So today, we're going to break down the 10 foods that science says will actually add years to your life. Not influencer pseudoscience, not Dr. TikTok nonsense, actual peer-reviewed, Harvard-backed, replicated across populations data. And we're ranking them from good to absolutely game-changing. Number 1 through 10. Some of these will surprise you. Some of these you probably already have in your kitchen and just are eating enough of. And at least one of them, I guarantee you've been avoiding your whole life because some fitness guru in 2005 told you it was bad for you. Let's get into it. Number 1. Green tea. This is your entry-level longevity hack, the starter pack. In Okinawa, the blue zone with one of the highest ratios of centenarians on the planet, roughly 6.5 per 10,000 people compared to America's pathetic 1.7, they drink green tea the way Americans drink soda. It's not a trend for them, it's just water with benefits. Green tea is loaded with catechins, which are powerful antioxidant compounds that reduce inflammation and protect cells from the kind of oxidative damage that accelerates aging. A massive study out of Japan tracked over 40,000 adults for 11 years and found that people who drank 5 or more cups of green tea per day had a significantly lower risk of dying from heart disease and stroke compared to those who drank less than 1 cup. For women, the reduction in cardiovascular mortality was even more pronounced. The compound doing the heavy lifting here is called EGCG, epigallocatechin gallate. It essentially tells your cells to calm down and stop self-destructing. It lowers LDL cholesterol oxidation, improves blood vessel function, and reduces the chronic, low-grade inflammation that scientists now call inflammaging, the slow internal burn that drives every major age-related disease from Alzheimer's to cancer. And here's the kicker. You don't need some expensive matcha latte from a boutique cafe. A simple cup of loose-leaf green tea, brewed properly, does the job. The Okinawans aren't spending $8 a cup. They're just drinking tea, consistently, every single day, for decades. That's the pattern. It's not about one heroic health move. It's about boring repetition over time. Green tea is the compound interest of the longevity world. Small daily deposits, massive long-term returns.
Number 2. Whole grains. Now, before you click off because some carnivore diet guy told you that grains are poison, hear me out. The longest-lived populations on the planet eat carbs, lots of them. But here's the critical distinction. They eat whole grains. not the bleached, stripped, nutritionally bankrupt white flour that makes up 90% of American bread products. In the blue zones, whole grains are a staple. Sardinians eat barley and sourdough bread made from traditional fermentation. Okinawans historically ate brown rice. The Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda eat oatmeal, quinoa, and whole wheat. A study published in the journal Circulation analyzed over 786,000 participants across 45 cohort studies. The finding was clear as day. People who ate 3 servings of whole grains per day had a 25% lower risk of cardiovascular death and a 15% lower risk of cancer death compared to people who barely touched the stuff. That's not a marginal improvement, that's a statistical landslide. Whole grains work because they're loaded with fiber, which feeds the beneficial bacteria in your gut. Your gut microbiome isn't just about digestion, it's basically your immune system's command center. When it's healthy, inflammation goes down, insulin sensitivity goes up, and your body stops treating every day like a 5-alarm fire. The sourdough bread in Sardinia is particularly interesting. The fermentation process actually lowers the glycemic index and makes nutrients more bioavailable. It's the exact opposite of the Wonder Bread sitting on your counter. Same category, completely different biological outcome. Number 3. Leafy greens, spinach, kale, collard greens, Swiss chard, beet tops, turnip greens. These are the foods that every blue zone population eats in massive quantities and that most Americans treat like decorative garnish they push to the side of the plate. In Ikaria, Greece, the island where people literally forget to die, wild greens are a cornerstone of the diet. They forage them from the hillsides. They cook them in olive oil. They eat them at almost every meal. And Icarians live on average 7 years longer than Americans, with significantly lower rates of dementia and chronic disease. Leafy greens are nutritional nuclear weapons. They're packed with vitamin K, which is essential for blood clotting and bone density. They've got folate, which helps with DNA repair. They've got magnesium, which is involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in your body. And they're loaded with nitrates, the natural kind, which your body converts into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is basically WD-40 for your blood vessels. It relaxes your arterial walls, lowers blood pressure, and improves blood flow to every organ, including your brain. A study from Rush University Medical Center followed 960 older adults for nearly 5 years. The ones who ate roughly 1 to 2 servings of leafy greens per day showed cognitive abilities equivalent to being 11 years younger than participants who rarely ate them. 11 years. That's not a supplement. That's not a brain training app. That's spinach. Number 4. Fatty fish. Salmon, sardines, mackerel, anchovies, trout. These are your omega-3 delivery systems, and the data behind them is about as close to bulletproof as nutritional science gets. In Loma Linda, California, the American Blue Zone, the pesco vegetarians, meaning people who eat a plant-based diet plus up to 1 serving of fish per day, actually live longer than the strict vegans in the same community. That surprised a lot of researchers who expected the vegans to win. But the omega-3 fatty acids in fish, specifically EPA and DHA, are doing something in the body that plant-based omega-3s from sources like flax can't fully replicate. A landmark study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that higher blood levels of omega-3s were associated with roughly a 4.7-year increase in life expectancy. Let that sink in. The researchers actually said that omega-3 levels were as powerful a predictor of mortality risk as smoking. In other words, not eating enough fatty fish is statistically comparable to lighting a cigarette. Omega-3s reduce triglycerides, lower blood pressure, decrease the formation of arterial plaque, and are powerfully anti-inflammatory. They're also critical for brain health. Your brain is literally 60% fat, and a significant chunk of that fat should be DHA. People with higher DHA levels have bigger brain volumes and slower rates of cognitive decline as they age. The Blue Zone's recommendation is simple. Eat small to mid-chain fish about 2 to 3 times a week. Skip the giant predator fish like swordfish and tuna steaks because they accumulate mercury. Stick to sardines, wild salmon, trout, and anchovies. They're cheaper, more sustainable, and higher in omega-3s per ounce than the expensive stuff.
Number 5. Legumes. Beans, lentils, chickpeas, black beans, fava beans, soybeans. This is the single most consistent food across all 5 blue zones, and it's not even close. Every centenarian population eats legumes almost every single day. The Blue Zone's research team analyzed over 150 dietary surveys from the world's longest-lived people,
and the average daily intake was at least half a cup of beans per day. That's it, half a cup. It's not glamorous, nobody's making viral reels about kidney beans, but the data is merciless. Legumes are the longevity goat. They're loaded with fiber, which stabilizes blood sugar and feeds your gut bacteria. They're packed with plant-based protein, which helps maintain muscle mass as you age. They've got folate, potassium, iron, and magnesium. And they have an incredibly low glycemic index, which means they don't spike your insulin the way refined carbs do. A study published in the Asia-Pacific Journal of Clinical Nutrition examined dietary patterns across multiple countries and found that for every 20 grams of daily legume intake, the risk of death dropped by approximately 7 to 8%. The Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda eat beans nearly every day, and they outlive the average American by about a decade. The Nicoyans in Costa Rica eat black beans with almost every meal. The Sardinians eat fava beans and chickpeas constantly. Beans are the boring, unglamorous, unsexy food that the longest-living humans on Earth swear by, and most Americans eat them maybe once a month in a Chipotle burrito. Number 6. Berries. Blueberries, strawberries, blackberries, cranberries, raspberries. These tiny fruit bombs are packed with more antioxidant firepower per ounce than almost any other food on the planet. Blueberries alone have roughly 380 antioxidant units per cup. For comparison, an apple has 60 and a banana has 40. It's not even the same league. The star compounds here are anthocyanins, the pigments that give berries their deep blue, red, and purple colors. Anthocyanins are some of the most potent anti-inflammatory compounds found in nature. They cross the blood-brain barrier, which most nutrients can't do, and directly protect neurons from oxidative damage. A massive long-term study from Harvard's Nurses' Health Study followed over 16,000 women aged 70 and older. The ones who ate at least one serving of blueberries or 2 servings of strawberries per week showed cognitive decline that was delayed by up to 2.5 years compared to women who rarely ate berries. That's not a supplement trial with 30 people. That's 16,000 women over many years. And berries didn't just protect the brain. Research has also linked regular berry consumption to lower risks of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, and overall mortality. A study of over 37,000 Americans found that people who regularly consumed berries had a lower risk of dying from any cause over an 8-year follow-up period. Cranberry consumers saw their risk of cardiometabolic death nearly cut in half. The beauty of berries is their versatility. Throw a handful in your oatmeal, blend them into a smoothie, eat them frozen as a snack. They're dirt cheap when you buy them frozen, they last forever in the freezer, and they deliver gram for gram more disease-fighting compounds than almost anything else in the grocery store. Number 7. Nuts. Here's one of my favorites because the data is absolutely savage. A landmark Harvard study published in the New England Journal of Medicine tracked nearly 120,000 adults over 30 years. 30 years. The results? People who ate a daily handful of nuts, roughly 1 ounce, about 20 almonds or 8 to 10 walnuts, were 20% less likely to die from any cause during the study period. The more frequently people ate nuts, the more the mortality rate dropped. Once a week got you an 11% reduction. 2 to 4 times a week, 13%. 5 to 6 times, 15%. Daily nut eaters, 20% reduction in all-cause mortality. That includes heart disease, cancer, and respiratory illness. And this wasn't some niche population. This was a massive, diverse cohort study published in one of the most respected medical journals on the planet. The Blue Zone centenarians eat about 2 ounces of nuts per day on average, almonds in Sardinia, pistachios in Nicoya, mixed nuts among the Adventists. Walnuts are particularly potent because they're the richest tree nut in omega-3 fatty acids. For years, people avoided nuts because they're high in calories and fat. That fear was based on terrible 1990s nutrition science that equated dietary fat with body fat. The reality is that nut eaters are actually leaner than people who don't eat nuts. The protein, fiber, and healthy fats create satiety that prevents overeating elsewhere. And the Loma Linda Adventist Health Study found that people who substituted nuts for other protein sources like red meat saw a 35 to 44% drop in cardiovascular death risk. That's not a typo. 35 to 44%. Number 8. Extra virgin olive oil. If there's one food that the longevity research community treats like liquid gold, it's this. Olive oil is the connective tissue of the Mediterranean diet, and the Mediterranean diet is the single most studied dietary pattern for longevity on the planet. Harvard tracked over 92,000 healthy men and women for 28 years. People who consumed the most olive oil, just a little more than half a tablespoon per day, had a 19% lower risk of dying from any cause compared to those who rarely consumed it. 19% all-cause mortality reduction from half a tablespoon. But it gets better. When researchers looked at specific diseases, higher olive oil consumption was linked to a 19% lower risk of cardiovascular death, 17% lower risk of cancer death, 29% lower risk of neurodegenerative disease death, and an 18% reduction in respiratory disease death. And when people replaced just 10 grams of butter, margarine, or mayonnaise per day with olive oil, the mortality risk dropped by as much as 34%. In Ikaria, Greece, middle-aged people who consumed about 6 tablespoons of olive oil daily appeared to cut their risk of dying in half. The secret weapon inside olive oil is a polyphenol called hydroxytyrosol. It's one of the most powerful natural antioxidants ever identified. It activates autophagy, the cellular cleanup process that removes damaged components and keeps cells functioning optimally. It also reduces LDL cholesterol oxidation, which is the process that actually makes cholesterol dangerous. Here's the catch though, and this is critical. We're talking about extra virgin olive oil. Not light olive oil, not olive oil blends, not the cheap stuff in the plastic bottle that's been sitting under fluorescent lights for 6 months. Real extra virgin olive oil is cold-pressed, unrefined, and packed with polyphenols. The commercial stuff has been processed in ways that strip out most of the beneficial compounds. A huge chunk of the olive oil sold in America doesn't even meet the legal standards for extra virgin. It's essentially counterfeit. So spend the extra $5. Get the dark glass bottle. Check for a harvest date. Your arteries will thank you.
Number 9. Sweet potatoes and root vegetables. This one flies under the radar, but the data is rock solid. In Okinawa, the blue zone with some of the highest life expectancy on Earth, sweet potatoes historically made up nearly 70% of the daily caloric intake before Western dietary influence took hold after World War II. 70%. These people were basically running on sweet potatoes and living past 100. Sweet potatoes are a near-perfect longevity food. They're loaded with beta-carotene, which your body converts into vitamin A, a critical nutrient for immune function and skin health. They've got vitamin C, manganese, and potassium. They're high in fiber, which feeds gut bacteria and stabilizes blood sugar. And they have a relatively low glycemic index compared to regular white potatoes, especially when consumed whole and unprocessed. But the real magic is in what sweet potatoes represent. They're a whole, unprocessed, plant-based carbohydrate source. The Blue Zone's populations don't fear carbs. They eat complex carbohydrates from root vegetables, whole grains, and legumes at almost every meal. The difference is they're not eating processed garbage. They're eating real food that comes out of the ground with all its fiber and nutrients intact. Root vegetables in general, carrots, beets, turnips, parsnips, are all part of this category. They're dirt cheap, incredibly filling, easy to prepare, and they last forever in your pantry. The Nicoyans in Costa Rica build their diet around beans, corn, and squash, all whole plant foods. The pattern across every blue zone is the same. Whole plants, minimally processed, eaten consistently. No one is counting macros. No one is tracking calories. They just eat real food from the earth, and they don't stop moving until they die of old age. Number 10. Fermented foods. This is the one that ties everything together, and it's the one most Americans are completely missing. In every single blue zone, fermented foods play a central role in the diet. Okinawans eat miso and fermented tofu. Sardinians and Icarians eat fermented cheeses and sourdough bread. The Nicoyans consume fermented corn products. Even the Adventists in Loma Linda incorporate fermented soy. Fermentation is an ancient preservation technique, but it does something far more important than keeping food from spoiling. It creates probiotics, the beneficial bacteria that colonize your gut and run what scientists now call your second brain. Your gut microbiome contains roughly 39 trillion bacteria. That's more bacterial cells than human cells in your entire body. These microorganisms regulate digestion, produce vitamins, modulate your immune system, and even influence your mood through the gut-brain axis. When your microbiome is diverse and healthy,
chronic inflammation goes down. When it's wrecked from a diet of processed food, sugar, and antibiotics, inflammation goes up and aging accelerates. A study published in Nature Aging found that consuming fermented foods for just 10 weeks significantly increased gut microbial diversity and reduced markers of chronic inflammation in healthy adults. That's 10 weeks, not 10 years. And the fermented foods used in the study were simple stuff: yogurt, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, kombucha. Nothing exotic, nothing expensive. The Blue Zone centenarians didn't know the word microbiome. They didn't have gut health podcasts. They just ate the way their grandparents taught them to eat, which included fermented foods at nearly every meal, and their guts were thriving because of it. You can start small. Add a spoonful of sauerkraut to your meals. Switch from regular bread to real sourdough. Throw some kimchi on your eggs. Drink a glass of kefir instead of that second soda. These are tiny changes that shift the internal ecosystem of your body in ways that compound over decades.
So there it is, 10 foods, not 10 supplements, not 10 biohacks, not 10 things you need a PhD in biochemistry to understand. Green tea, whole grains, leafy greens, fatty fish, legumes, berries, nuts, extra virgin olive oil, sweet potatoes, and fermented foods. These are the building blocks that the longest-lived humans on Earth have been eating for centuries. The irony is that none of this is new. None of it is revolutionary. Your great-grandmother probably ate most of this list without thinking twice. The billion-dollar wellness industry wants you to believe that longevity is complicated, that you need expensive protocols and IV drips and red light panels and personalized genetic testing. And look, some of that stuff might help at the margins, but the foundation, the thing that actually moves the needle, is what's on your plate 3 times a day, 365 days a year, for the rest of your life. The data says that switching from a standard Western diet to one rich in whole plant foods, healthy fats, and legumes could add over a decade to your life expectancy if you start by your 40s, a full decade. And even if you start later, the benefits are substantial. This isn't about perfection. Nobody in the Blue Zones is counting grams of anthocyanins or optimizing their omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. They just eat real food. They eat with their families. They stop eating when they're 80% full. And they do it every single day until they die peacefully in their sleep at an age most Americans can only dream of reaching. The question isn't whether this works. The science has been screaming the answer for decades. The question is whether you're going to keep ordering the combo meal or whether you're going to start putting a few of these foods on your plate. Your call. That's a wrap for today. I've got more deep dives and receipts to drop soon. Hit sub so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next video.